A family's priceless heirloom lost for decades turned up in a Chesapeake antique store. The owners tried to get it back to the family but ran into nothing but dead ends until they turned to investigator Mike Mather for help.
Tina's father was a soldier.
I can remember putting on his boots and running around the house.
But that's where her memories end. Jimmy Stanley faced 2 harrowing tours in Vietnam, but it wasn't combat that killed him.
I wish I knew him, you know.
While back in the United States, he died behind the wheel of his Ford Mustang. It was 1977, and Tina was only 7.
And, you know, how he could do so much and then die in a car wreck.
This is all she has from her father, 2 photographs. Long ago, her mother, maybe still struggling with grief, took all of Sergeant Stanley's war medals, pins, and photographs. She cut ties with her daughters and left Arkansas for a fresh start in Virginia. Not long after, everything was lost.
2 days before I talked to you was the anniversary of Jim's death. And I had stood there talking to the picture. And as I was walking away, I actually asked, I wonder what happened to his stuff.
So as she stood there in front of her father's photograph, she had no idea that I had his stuff and that I had been trying 6 weeks to solve a mystery brought to me by Ryan Andrews. So your grandmother gave this to you and said do what with it?
Find him. Find him or find his family.
For 35 years, Ryan's grandmother owned an antique shop on Military Highway in Chesapeake. One day, long ago, someone sold her the abandoned contents of a storage unit, including this shadow box.
We believe that probably she paid about $5 for this piece.
So Ryan set out to find the owner. He had a name, a picture, some dog tags, but not much more. With a name as common as Jimmy Stanley, he hit a dead end.
Several different Jimmy Stanleys, none that ever pointed to who he was. And other than that, looking at what the medals were, I had no idea what I had my hands on.
So you were kind of stuck?
I was dead stuck.
He turned to the investigators at News Channel 3.
That's what brings me to you.
He's a Sergeant First Class, also known as an E7.
The first stop on my investigation was Fort Eustis and Army Transportation Museum curator Mark Samus. He explained every medal, pin, and patch in the shadow box.
That's an Army Commendation Medal. So you're looking at a guy that has maybe 15 years of service with 3.5 or 4 years in combat.
That's a substantial career.
Yes, it is.
All of this told me what the soldier had done and where he had served, but not how to find his family. So my investigation continued. Over several weeks, I located military records, archived newspaper articles from Texas and Missouri, and a relative's obituary. All of that eventually drew me halfway across the country to this street in El Dorado, Arkansas, and to this woman, his daughter, who told me all the souvenirs of her father's service vanished long ago.
That it was placed in the storage building and that she didn't pay rent on it. And from there, we assumed that it just disappeared. You know, whoever got their hands on it just kept it, or maybe even thrown it away not knowing what it was.
But it was never thrown away. And now, 2 decades after this heirloom disappeared, she's about to get it back. And you can see on her face just how anxious she is to see what I have in the box.
Oh my God. Those are all his medals, all his pins. Those are his dog tags.
If it sounds like my voice is cracking, it is. I can see how much this means to her.
And this was hanging in the den as I was growing up. Thank you so much.
To find Jimmy Stanley's daughter, I needed to learn about Jimmy Stanley. And my investigation uncovered stories of her father's combat that Tina never knew. Stories tucked in his file in the National Archives. She'd never seen this Army portrait until right now. The scar on his face, absent in the picture she has, shows he was wounded in combat. Twice, according to his medals and his military records. She had no idea what he faced in Vietnam until I read to her his commendations.
At one time, hostile fire was so intense he was forced to play dead in full view of the enemy until he could reload his weapon, fire a burst, and dash for a covered position.
7 of the 9 men in Stanley's squad were killed or wounded that day. This is the Army Commendation Medal he earned for his heroism. And just weeks later, he earned another medal, a Bronze Star with a V for valor. He was credited with saving his entire platoon.
It's incredible. It's overwhelming. It's God sent. It really is.
The shadow box we returned to her is a little tattered from decades in storage, but she doesn't care. It's what's inside, her father's story, that is now a little more clear.
Slowly and surely, I'm collecting memories of him.
Did you ever think you'd see this back?
No, sir. Not at all. Not at all. It is amazing. It's a miracle.
It is right now.
It is an absolute miracle. I'm so grateful to have it back.
I gave his daughter the portrait from the archives along with all the commendations detailing her father's bravery in battle, stories no one had ever told her. She said this gesture from Chesapeake means more to her and her family than anyone will ever know. Mike Mather, News Channel 3.